This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
And the Indiana Pacers take down the Brooklyn Nets. I guess some version of the Brooklyn Nets, 113-99. But hey, they didn't lose to a bad team. And the $1 million question, Facci never confirmed or denied if he was going to be in the arena for this game. 17 straight losses for Facci when he's in attendance for the blue and gold. The Pacers do escape Brooklyn with a victory. But did Facci break the streak? Joining me on the phone, we've got Facci live here on Setting the Pace. Facci, what happened tonight?
The curse has been snapped like a twig. 6 long years down the drain. 17 straight L's is no more. They couldn't stretch it to 18 with me in the building. The Indiana Pacers get it done.
That's incredible. So the streak is officially over?
No, I wish it was. I really do wish it was, but I was not in the building, people. I cannot take credit for this. While I want this streak to end, I'm not gonna lie about it. I was not there. Hey, if I was, this was definitely the game to go to, but just a combination of, hey, Monday night, it's a commitment getting to Brooklyn and seeing who's out there for the Nets just had me being like, you know what, this just ain't it. I'm going to see other games this year. They're going to be a little bit more entertaining than this one. But for now, the streak lives on.
Yeah, Facci said I couldn't find anybody that wanted to go to me. I said you didn't want anybody to go watch Nick Claxton go 2 for 10 from the field.
I couldn't find one person that was interested in going to this game. And look, I don't have friends that are Nets fans. They're hard to even come across in real life. There's not many Nets fans out there. And obviously, look, it's hard to find other Pacer fans in New York. But most of the time, oh, hey, earlier in the season, I was able to convince a friend to go to the Nets Pacers. At this time, it's just people like, I'm not, I just can't make that trip to New York City. But regardless, this was one that you had to have. When we saw everybody that was ruled out for Brooklyn, your D'Angelo Russells and your Ben Simmons and no Cam Thomas and all this, you knew it's like, okay, Indiana has to win this game. But on the flip side, does Indiana overlook Brooklyn? Not tonight, but there were moments.
Yeah, I mean, it was not great early on in the first quarter. The Pacers only led 24-22, and the Brooklyn Nets were just absolutely dominating Indiana on the offensive glass, and I think that continued throughout the third quarter and some of the fourth. They did a lot better job in the second quarter. I think they held them to 2 last time I checked. But I do want to start things off here, Facci, talking about a person that we kind of always kind of like maybe never lead with enough on this podcast, and that's Benedict Mathurin. I felt like in this game specifically, Benedict Mathurin really kind of like carried the load offensively early on, and it just kind of carried throughout the game. 20 points on 8 of 14 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Obviously, there's a couple of turnovers there from him as well, 3 turnovers as well in this game, but still, once again, the best plus minus of anybody on the court with a plus 16. I just felt like tonight, Mathurin to me felt like the best player.
Yeah, no, it really did. Mathurin had a really good second quarter. And then obviously, hey, in the second half, he carried it on over 20 points in this game on 8 of 14. It's been great. The shots have been up and down, inconsistent at times. He's been getting around, 10 or so, 10, 12 shots here and there. But I feel like he's made it count. And I think that's been awesome, is that he's been efficient. He's been playing team basketball. And he's someone now that if you're still a believer that Aaron Nesmith's going to take his starting spot back, you really have to think twice because Mathurin is playing really good, consistent basketball right now. And yeah, I think he does deserve that early shout out in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point that you bring up. I mean, it's been an ongoing conversation about like what's going to happen when Nesmith comes back. And, the more that Mathurin starts to play well with this group, or continues to play well, I should say, not starts to play, but continues to play well with this group, it's kind of hard to make a case that he should come out of the starting lineup. He's really earned it. But I will say in tonight's game, like, there were some big buckets that he hit early on. The Pacers offense was kind of, rusty there a little bit. They kind of got in a little bit of a rut. But I felt like Mathurin just kind of made some big shots. He seemed very calm and poised tonight in the game. Obviously when a guy's feeling good about his shot going in early on, he's going to have a couple of shots here and there where maybe he's looking to find some more. I think there was like a one possession I remember in the fourth quarter where he tried to do like 2 fake dribble handoffs, ended up driving baseline and missed a layup. And Quinn Buckner's like, I was trying to figure out what he was going to do there. So you could just tell he was maybe hunting for a shot a little bit more because second in attempts and field goal attempts tonight. So, something we're not used to Mathurin seeing, but it is nice to know that when he does have it going offensively, that he can get a good number of shot attempts to kind of keep feeding the beast, because I feel like when he's locked in, like this is a guy you want to get the ball because he can do a lot of things.
He really could. And I think that these performances that he's capable, honestly, what feels like all the time. Just get him enough shots, get him in a rhythm. He had 9 points that second quarter that I was talking about. I thought that was a really good, key point of Indiana being able to push ahead and have that lead at halftime, that 16-point lead. So he was really good then and just kind of stayed consistent throughout. So good performance from Mathurin, but another one of those performances across the starting lineup where it's like, hey, you have 4 of the 5 starters in double digits. That seems to be the consistent thing. But everybody playing, just solidly. I felt like tonight was not no one had that big performance by any means, but we talked about Mathurin with 20. I think we got to talk about Tyrese Haliburton with 23. He had 23 and 8. We didn't see the same type of point god from like a zero turnover perspective, but everybody is human, and I feel like these are the type of performances that you could always live with from a Tyrese Haliburton when you're getting 23 and 8 and it feels just a little like he had been, not to say cooled off, but like, hey, if we're getting this type of consistency of 33 points, then 27 points, 23 points, this is the type of consistency we've hoped and wanted to see out of Tyrese this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Pacers' third win in a row, right? A 3-game winning streak for the boys. 3 straight games, Tyrese Haliburton has been the leading scorer, and I think that kind of tells you, he needs to be more assertive as a scorer. Like, we can say it till we're blue in the face, but until he does it, that's all that matters. But once again, like, you want Tyrese to be more, I guess you could say, what's the right word? I think you just more like not dependent, but I'm trying to think of the right word. Just actively looking for a shot is what I'm trying to say here.
Sure.
There's a word I'm thinking of, but I just can't think of it right now. It's late at night.
Be more assertive with your shot. Just be looking for it. And I think that, we've seen that it's like I said, this seemed like a little bit of I don't want to call it a quieter game, but if you look at the last 3 games, 21 shots against Miami, 19 against Phoenix, just 12 tonight. But the difference was he got to the free throw line 9 times. He hit all 9 of the free throws. We've seen games where Tyrese has 0 free throws, like against OKC, or 2 against Golden State. When he goes 9 of 9 from the free throw line, that's just fantastic stuff. And I think that he's building into real consistency. I think that OKC game was sort of like the downfall, and he's picked himself up ever since then and been far more consistent lately.
Yeah, I think he got kind of tired of the noise. I think people have rightfully been crushing him for his lack of offensive assertiveness into the game. So I think that it's well deserved, but I also think it's a great response from him. Like, that's what good players do. When they get criticized, they respond in a positive way on the court. So great game from him tonight. I mean, maybe just a good game from him. Maybe not a great game, but it was a very nice Tyrese Haliburton game from him. Maybe you would like to see less than 3 turnovers from Tyrese. That would probably be like my only one nitpick there of his game. But
yeah, we're nitpicking, but only because he was on a stretch of 23 assists to 0 turnovers.
True.
That when you see 8 and 3, at one point it was like 6 assists and 3 turnovers. You're like, that's not the usual Tyrese that we're used to seeing. But I feel like these are the type of performances that we can say, hey, look, we'll take these all day because we've seen the other side. We've seen the stat that we talked about. When Tyrese is below 10 points, the Pacers don't have a win. So when he has 20 or more points, they have a very good record in the NBA. So great to see. And then I feel like we're going throughout, Pascal Siakam was another just kind of a solid type of performance. Nothing to really write home about too much. But I think that Siakam was someone who, in the second half, he had 11 of his 19, had a slow first quarter, where I feel like he just remained, 16 shot attempts, led the team, didn't shoot the ball great tonight, 7 of 16, 0 of 3 from three-point land. But like, if this is a so type of game of Siakam, it's another performance that you can absolutely live with.
I will just say this. We talked about the Facci curse early on at the beginning of the episode. Jeremiah Johnson, pregame against the Suns, highlighted how well Pascal Siakam has been shooting from 3 this year.
Uh-oh.
Since then, he is 1 of 8 from 3 in the last 2 games. So, do we got a new curse on our hands? Is it the JJ curse? We will have to keep an eye on that to see if JJ did give him that announcer's curse in the pregame show by highlighting how well of a shooter he was, because that's what it felt like last year with Jalen Smith. It's like people could not stop talking about how great of a three-point shooter he was, and all of a sudden he just lost everything from behind the arc. It was like his magic power had disappeared, and that's kind of what I'm not afraid of with Pascal, because Pascal came into this season, not a great three-point shooter, but he's been shooting at an elite level this year. And so now it's almost like, does water find its level? Is he starting to come back a little bit? 1 of 8 in his last 2 games. Yikes. I don't even know what he was against was it the Miami Heat, before that against the Suns, at the beginning of the year. So would be curious to see what he looks like in 2025. But a very nice game from Pascal, and only had to play 24 minutes. I think that is huge, because he did not have to go back into the fourth quarter where he usually plays a heavy amount of minutes. So the Pacers kind of don't have to put so much wear and tear on his legs. But 16 shots in 24 minutes, that's a lot of shooting from Pascal.
It's a lot, but here's what I want to say, JJ. If you're listening, look, this is how these curses start. They start quick. You make one comment, and next thing you know, we'll pin, Pascal Siakam shooting slump on you. It happens quick, but look, 16 shots in 24 minutes. He was very active. I felt like early on in the first quarter, I mean, he was pretty active getting some shots up. This was a Brooklyn team where, let's call it like it is. This is not the most talented roster the Brooklyn Nets can assemble. There's quite a few players out in this game, and this was just one where you looked across, and it just felt like too early in the season to be seeing a lot of names that you might not be familiar with, or a lot of young guys. Indiana had to take advantage of this game. They had a sizable lead at times, but they let Brooklyn crawl back into this game and cut it to single digits. It was a 12-0 run in the third quarter that really, to end it, that had Brooklyn hanging around. But I think that there's going to be times in this season where we've said, I don't care how you get it done, just get it done, just win. And this was an ugly win. And just to point it out in specific, what the Pacers had been doing great lately was winning the rebounding battle, or hanging right in there and getting more shots up. They got crushed on the glass, 51-35. From an offensive glass standpoint, 20-5 in favor of Brooklyn. From a shot attempt standpoint, Indiana had nearly 20 more shots than their opponents each of the last 2 games. In this game, it was Brooklyn with 98 shots and Indiana with just 79. Despite all of this, Indiana finds a way to win by 14. Just find a way to win, and nobody cares. Good job, Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. I mean, the offensive rebounding from Brooklyn was just through the roof. It's like they were scrappy as all get out. Like, this is not a good team,
Very
like
much.
you said. Like, the players out there, like, nobody really cares about them in terms of, like, a casual NBA fan. Like, you're not looking up any of these guys and, like, man, I'm really excited to go watch, Tyrese Martin play tonight. It's like, who the heck is Tyrese Martin? Is this a guy that's been created on, 2K? Like, that's literally what that name felt like. I was like, Tyrese Martin. Like, I've never heard of that guy. So it is just an interesting thing. Now, I was going to ask you this early in the beginning of the first quarter. I was like, I'm going to ask at the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. I was going to say, would you rather have had the Pacers trade for Thomas Bryant or Daron Sharp? I think after this game, you maybe feel a little bit different about the two. I do love Thomas Bryant's energy and fit with this group, just because I feel like he is so hilarious. Like, I've never met a funnier player in the last, I don't know, couple of years than Thomas Bryant. Like, it's just, he impacts the game with what he does, but he's funny too. Like, he was so adamant that he did not foul on that block shot, and the bench is just kind of like smiling at him, like, we're not wasting our challenge on a foul that you committed, because number one, the guy's not a good free throw shooter, and number two, you can rack up fouls because they're not important to what we're doing as a team. And Quinn Buckner is just chuckling his head off at Thomas Bryant, because he was sitting right there next to Rick Carlisle, where they had him stationed at Quinn Buckner Kristen Airy. So I was just cracking up because Thomas Bryant was like adamant, I did not foul him. But if you had to pick between the two guys from just a fit standpoint, would you still pick Thomas Bryant?
Nah, I'd probably pick Daron Sharp, but I think he would have cost more. I mean, he's 23 years old. He's young. I feel like he's, a bit more athletic. I think
He
that
had a great game.
Yeah, exactly. A night like tonight is like, he's going to have some really big performances as Brooklyn gives him more playing time and, showcases him more. I mean, 16 points, 13 boards, 5 assists, 0 turnovers.
+9.
He a +9 in this game when they lose by 14. He only plays 22 minutes. Like, this would have been an awesome pickup for Indiana, especially, like I said, given how young he is, just 23 years old. But with the Pacers trading for Thomas Bryant, you do that deal 10 out of 10 times. I mean, they
Great
really
point.
give up absolutely. They give up the pocket lint in a pair of pants that needs to be washed. All right. So it's just, you can deal with that. You can live with that any day. But also, one thing I want to point out is like, the bench didn't really have it going on that much tonight. Like it wasn't like a big bench performance like we talked about recently, where Indiana's been putting up 40 plus points on the bench. A night like tonight, a little bit quiet. It was, I guess they had probably close to about 40 or so. It's probably like 35, 36. But it just felt like there was no one who really stood out much. Obi had 6, I think, in the first quarter, and then finished the game with 11. You got Thomas Bryant with 8, you got McConnell at 8, but like you did enough. And I think in this game, another thing I want to point out, Indiana had been swinging the ball around left and right the previous 2 games, 35 assists, just 22 assists tonight. That's a big reduction in assists. You're talking about 13 less assists than what you've had each of the last 2 games. But like I said, in the end, it didn't matter. The Pacers were just that much more talented than this version of the Nets that we saw tonight.
You're right. I mean, I actually was gonna say, like, I don't think the bench has been playing great really the last handful of games. I feel like if you go back and look at the numbers, I'm sure you've been seeing them float on Twitter. It's like that starting 5 group has a defensive rating of like a 99.8 before tonight's game, and like an offensive rating of like 120 when they're on the floor together, which is just like outlandish. Like it's a great number. It's like one of the best in the leagues in terms of like 5-man lineup combinations. And so to me, when you've seen kind of the bench come in, like they just feel like they're missing something. It feels like they're missing a piece. And I know that they have Siakam paired with that bench a lot because they bring Obi Toppin in early in the first quarter to play with Tyrese, and they bring Siakam back in when Tyrese is on the bench resting, and let Siakam kind of carry that load offensively, or at least be that number one go-to guy. But there are times when that bench unit just doesn't feel like the greatest group together, and it feels like the Pacers might either like get a big lead early in the first quarter and the bench comes in slowly and they slowly start taking away parts from that 5-man lineup and they just kind of fall apart and crumble. So it's something to monitor moving forward, because I do think that's going to play a big factor in their playoff hopes. Is just like how much can they actually trust the bench? Like who else needs to be with the bench units and things like that. So they did, I believe it was against Phoenix, they did kind of go back to Nembhard with that group because Nembhard was so pivotal to what the defense was doing, and they kind of pulled somebody else out of the rotation. I forget who it was exactly, but that to me would not be a surprise that the Pacers do kind of shake things up a little bit with that bench, just because we talked about it, like outside of Siakam with that group, McConnell can score at times, but like who else is like a naturally gifted scorer? A lot of these guys are dependent upon others making offense for them.
Yeah, no, very much. I think Obi Toppin's the guy that if you put him in the right position to succeed, yeah, look, you have your Tyrese Haliburton around him or others, like, yeah, they'll find him. He'll get some open looks, but he's not someone that's just going to go out there and be getting you 20, 15 to 20 a night unless someone's setting him up. So you look at this roster, it's like, yeah, I think if you plug in Aaron Nesmith off the bench, don't expect a lot to change. He's not just going to become the go-to scorer of the bench. It's not like that. But I think, a night like tonight, you look at this, a lot of guys are +1, -1, -2, -1. There wasn't much of, no one really made that type of impact tonight that we've seen. It was the starters that were very, very good. But overall, one thing that Indiana did do well, they got to the free throw line 23 times to Brooklyn's 11. I feel like they were just a more assertive team. A lot of that was, 9 free throw attempts from Haliburton, 5 from Siakam, your best 2 players getting to the free throw line. You love to see it. But I think that we also can't lose track that Indiana is finally, for the first time, like I mentioned, Tony pointed out the other day, they're above 1-0 or anything. They're back to above 500. They are 19-18. They are building on this. They are undefeated in 2025. I don't know how long this is going to stretch for, but I'm not ready for it to end. The boys have started the year the right way.
They're playing really good right now. I mean, there's no denying it. They've had I think ever since that 19-point loss to Milwaukee, it kind of was a wake-up call for them.
Yeah,
I think
so.
Sometimes you can kind of see the beauty in a loss where it's tough at the moment, but you look back and say that loss really kind of shook things up in terms of how we viewed things. Like they've been great on the road recently.
Mm-hmm.
Chris and Ray brought that up a lot. I think they were like 2-11 or something last time when they played on the road in Brooklyn or something like that. and I forget what. I'll look it up real quick. I'm trying to remember what their road record is right now, but
10 and 12.
8-12. So they've been
10 and
playing
12. 10 and
10 and 12. So they've won 8 of their whatever last games. Maybe 8-1 in their last 9 is what
Wow.
it seems like. So they've been playing like incredible on the road, and it's kind of like they haven't been as good at home for whatever reason, and I think that they've just kind of figured things out. But yeah, this was a good game. I think it was a good win. You have to win these kind of games. Like, we don't want to come on here and talk about how in the heck do you lose to this Brooklyn Nets team. Like, no, you have to win these games. I don't care how ugly the game is. It felt very ugly for the majority of it. I was having a hard time staying awake. It's just one of those things where it's been like a really cold, snowy day here in Indiana. Had to get up early to go shovel in my driveway to get to work, and then like working all day, coming home, having to shovel some more so I can get up into my garage. It's just like one of those things you sit down, you're like, do I really want to take time to watch Pacers versus this version of the Nets? I have to because we're podcasting about it, but it's one of those where you have to win it. It's almost like a must win. You cannot allow yourself to lose this game, especially with how tight the standings are.
No, like, I had the same moment as you. Like, I'm tired. It's a Monday. There's this, and I'm just like, there's just something where it's like, if Indiana blows this, when Brooklyn, so the Pacers led by as many as 24 in this game. When Brooklyn cut it to single digits, I was like, if they blow this game, this podcast recap is going to be completely different, and it's just going to be just like tearing apart this season in general, because we have the momentum right now to undo it and lose to this type of Brooklyn Nets team would just be absolutely unacceptable. So I'm thrilled that Indiana got this done. I don't care if they really won by 1 or not. They won by double digits. It's great. They are, like I said, above 500. The standings are getting tighter and tighter, which is great to see. Now they are tied for 6th place with the Miami Heat, and they are half a game back of the Milwaukee Bucks right now. This is for 5th. They're not that far off from Orlando Magic at this point. 2.5 games back of 4th. So it's just like anything can happen now, and that's not how things looked roughly 1 to 2 weeks ago or anything of that sort. An upcoming game against Chicago has you feeling like the good times just might keep rolling a bit longer. And I don't want them to end. This team has that momentum. My hope is that they never dip below 500 again. I really would love to believe that when they went from 18-18 to 19-18, hopefully that is that mark in the season where Indiana never dips below 500. That's my plan. That's what happened last year when they really took off. So hey, we might as well turn back the clocks and do it again.
Hey, I'm right there with you, Facci. I agree. So let's go ahead and give our player awards out tonight. I think for the MVP, there's a reason why I led with Mathurin. I think Mathurin should be the MVP of the game tonight. I don't know if you have any pushback on that, but I feel like Mathurin is deserving. I felt like he actually was the best player in the game.
Yeah. No, definitely cool with that, because I feel like you could say, hey, Tyrese scored more, but Tyrese didn't look as great as he looked the previous 2 games when we did give him that MVP award. So I think that's very fitting.
Okay, let's go a little bit different here. Let's do our feisty Foster hustle player of the game before we do our clutch player.
I think Turner was active in this game. Turner had some nice swats. I think that was pretty good. Also had 3 steals. So
Yeah.
3 steals, 3 blocks. I mean, hey, the kids love saying stocks. I think he had plenty of those.
The kids.
And I just think that, Turner, this was like I don't want to call it like a gritty performance. He did what the Pacers needed him to do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he had 10 points in the first half, didn't score any in the second half, but was still impactful. Like, I love seeing how chippy he got with Nick Claxton there in the fourth quarter. I think Quinn Buckner brought it up like 2 Texas Longhorns going at it. I'm like, I love Quinn Buckner. Quinn Buckner was on one tonight. He was absolutely amazing. I tweeted out one thing that he said. I forget what player drove to the basket, and they called it an offensive foul. And he goes, is that an offensive foul? Whistle blows. They call the offensive foul. He's like, well, it was offensive with how ugly it was. I'm like, Quinn, you're killing me, dude. He was just on another level tonight for the Pacers broadcast. But yes, I agree. I think Miles Turner is deserving of the feisty Foster player. I would say, one of those things is like you could almost give the hustle player to multiple guys on a regular basis because like this team has been playing much better. But I do think he deserves it because it's hard to get 3 steals and 3 blocks in a game. Like that's playing really good defense, and he was, they did dominate the boards quite a bit. The Nets did as a team overall, but Jenny Busick said it great at halftime. It's not just on the five to get the rebounds; it's on everybody.
It really is. And one thing when you're mentioning Quinn's call, I gotta say, I was in a pickle today for everyone listening to this. So I use NBA League Pass because I'm out of market, for the Pacer games. League Pass has that rule where they black out, your local, team. So I could not watch this game through League Pass. I typically never have that problem because when the Pacers come to town, I go to the game. So I was scrambling. I did not know what I was going to do to figure out where I was going to watch this game. Old Stream East, if you guys are familiar, Stream East came through, but the problem was this: I had to listen to the Brooklyn Nets announcers,
Was
and
it bad?
it was bad. It was bad.
Iron Eagles bad?
No, he's good, but it's like it's Chris and Quinn. Like to Pacer fans, like that's what you associate with Pacer basketball. So I'm going to be honest. Second half, I didn't even have the volume on. I was just watching. I had a Raw WWE Raw on Netflix on the background, and I just thought to myself, hey, you know what? I got the game on. This is good, but it was not the same. The type of experience that you just described, Quinn, I didn't get that tonight, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, you missed a great Quinn night. He was absolutely killing me. He was cackling all over the place at his own jokes. I mean, just hearing him cackle after Thomas Bryant was complaining about a foul call it just made my night. I was like, Quinn,
Man, having
I'm
fun.
over here falling asleep. I'm just cracking up, but um, you gotta love that the chemistry that Chris and Quinn have, and great to have Chris and Neri back on the call tonight. I don't really know if there should be a clutch player in the game. I mean, is there anybody that stands out? Nemhard had some big moments in the fourth quarter. I think he had all 8 points in the fourth. Had that massive three that Mathurin threw out to him. You could maybe say he should be the clutch player tonight. I know fans probably think I'm just being a little bit Nemhard biased, but I actually do feel like he had some big moments there in the fourth.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm fine giving it to him. He did have, yeah, like you said, the majority of his baskets, maybe all of them.
All
So
of
yeah,
them. First points in
I
the
mean,
fourth quarter.
I'm definitely cool with that. I think this was a time, like I said, at one point in the fourth quarter, it's an 8 point game. So I think that hey, 8 point game, Nemhard gives you 8 in the fourth. I'm cool with that. So let's make him the clutch player of the game.
All right, perfect stuff there. And I will say this, I'm sure a lot of people saw, but the Indiana Pacers did share a very cool thing that they are doing for local fans in Indiana. They are broadcasting 5 games on local television, WTHR. For those in Indianapolis, that is channel 13. So you'll be able to get to see those games. And I'm going to pull those up just real quick because I have forgotten who all is on that list. But I do believe
Warriors start, I
yeah,
believe.
it's the Warriors game Friday night. I think they're playing Philadelphia in that stretch as well. They've got, I hate that I don't, the Lakers are on that list as well. The Bucks and some other team that I'm spacing on, the Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks. So those 5 games will be on air. So yeah, you got January 10th, this Saturday against the Golden State Warriors. February 8th, which I believe is a Wednesday night. Maybe it's a Sunday game. It's at LA. Oh, they're doing the one at LA. Okay, so not the one in Indiana. So at LA, that'll be a 4 p.m. tip off here. That is going to be on WTHR March 14th, March 15th, and March 19th. So you got a whole week right there of Pacers basketball on Channel 13 WTHR, the NBC affiliate. That is just really cool stuff because I know there's fans that don't necessarily buy FanDuel Sports Network to stream it on a regular basis, or they might have like a cable provider they use their parents' login, something like that. But it'll be available if you have bunny ears. You can watch these games. So I think that's really cool. The Pacers are kind of pulling a book, part of a page out of Matt Ishbia's book of trying to get the
Cool.
fans more involved. And we'll see what other changes happen. But I think this is a great direction for the league.
It really is. It's hard to watch games. It really is. Like, especially, I mean, don't even get me started on football games. Football games are really hard to watch, especially if you're, out of market. So, I think this is a great opportunity for the fans. I think more, whether it's owners, team has to do things like this to be able to, just really get your fan base engaged. I love your talking about Matt Ishbia lowering the food prices at games. That's more likely to go out there and spend, take your family instead of just going with a friend. So I think things like this goes a long way, and I think it's a good move for the fan base.
No, it really is. So Last thing here, Facci, just a couple things. I know there were some rumors about Cam Johnson with going to the Pacers or the Pacers having some interest in him. I did share my thoughts on Twitter. I think we can maybe dive into this on a later episode. Tomorrow, we did pre-record an episode talking about Jimmy Butler. So if you're listening to this today on Tuesday, on Wednesday, we did have a long conversation about Jimmy Butler and not necessarily like being traded to the Pacers, but like how a Jimmy Butler trade kind of impacts the Eastern Conference and the league in general. So I thought that was a really good conversation. Now, Cam Johnson is somebody that has been heavily linked to the Pacers, it feels like, ever since the Nets said they were going to kind of like go into this tank mode. But we don't have time on this episode to deep dive into it, but just, I guess, a quick thought on what you think about Cam Johnson and the Pacers.
I think the Pacers are right to be keeping their ear open. I think Cam Johnson's someone that's not like breaking the bank, for Indiana or anything. And I know that the players that, from the reports, it sounds like Obi Toppin would be a player that could very well be involved. And I've heard Obi as well as Neesmith and maybe even like an Isaiah Jackson or a James Wiseman type contract. The Pacers do need to make a consolidation move at some point. Is Cam Johnson the guy? He definitely makes this team better. I don't think he moves the needle significantly, but I think that he's a good player. I think the Nets will look to trade him. I think Indiana should be sniffing around, but I don't think it's a move that they have to make right now. I think it's a move that you make if it makes sense for you and you're not giving up too much, because he's not the type of guy that you want to like break the bank for.
Yeah, it's exactly how I felt. I mean, I think it's a guy that makes sense for this roster.
Yeah.
But, like, do the Pacers have the right trading pieces? Like, same reason why they were like, yeah, the Pacers had interest in DFS, but they didn't make a deal because if they have to trade anybody, it's got to be Obi Toppin, and that's like a long contract that people might not want. So we'll dive into it a little bit more deeper because I do want to explain, like, what I do like, what I don't like about him and his fit. And there's nothing wrong with making that move because I do think that overall he is a better player than Obi Toppin.
Yes, I do.
But I do think Obi Toppin really fits his team well. Now, I know our friend Rooster would be very upset if we traded Obi Toppin. He's been adamant about that, whether that's messaging me privately on a text message or posting it on social. You can't trade Ben Shepherd, you can't trade Obi Toppin, and you better not trade Johnny Furt because Rooster is going to lose his mind. But if it makes the Pacers better, I wonder if Rooster would have a change of heart.
I think he'd come along pretty quickly. But look, yeah, we love this team, we love these players, all that. But like, you always want to say, hey, how do we get a little bit closer to winning a championship? Is Cam Johnson going to be the piece that takes us to a championship? No. Is Cam Johnson someone that makes his team better? Yes, he is. He's having a really good year. And look, somebody needs to have a really good year on a really bad team. He's averaging 19.5 points per game. 4.3 rebounds is nothing to write home about. But he's shooting the ball really well. About 50% from the field, about 44% from three. He's always been a good three-point shooter. I think he's 6'8", so he's got some size that Indiana could definitely use. You could put him at the three, and all of a sudden your starting lineup gets a lot larger. Now maybe that does that move Mathurin to the bench, and then maybe you're a little bit more balanced. I don't think if you make a trade for Cameron Johnson, I don't think you're looking to bring him off the bench. But all this is stuff that we could discuss in a later episode. I think Indiana, like I said, they should be in the running for a player like this. I would not expect them to be in the running for a player like Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I think here's what I'll say. Like, I feel like the Pacers are more likely to make a move in the offseason than they are at the trade deadline. And I think that the Nets, if they're smart, they won't just trade Cam Johnson at the trade deadline just to trade him. I think if they waited till the offseason to make a move, they could make him they could probably get more back for him because he's still under contract. So it's not like it's the end of the world. So that to me is where I would just kind of be like hesitant a little bit. If I'm Brooklyn, just to trade away, I know he's an asset and you want to kind of clean house a little bit to continue to kind of rebuild, but just like if you don't have to play him every night and you can find a way that you're not overexerting him and things like that, like keep his value high, I think that'd be the smart thing to do. But the last thing here, you mentioned it, you were watching WWE Raw, the debut on Netflix. I've been listening to a handful of interviews with Triple H. I cannot thank you enough for the story you told us about Triple H a couple of episodes ago, probably about a month or so ago, when you talked about Triple H literally like being in the same stall as you, and you guys are both having a, whatever. We don't have to go
next
through
to
all
each
that.
other. We weren't in the same stall.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Having a poop off.
Yeah, exactly. We did have an old fashioned poop off. Hey, good times with Triple H. But yeah, look, hey, Raw's on Netflix. Huge for wrestling, huge for viewership. Their viewership's gonna explode, and they really wanted to make that first episode like big. I mean, The Rock kicked it off. John
Well,
Cena.
Triple H kicked it off.
Well, yes, Triple H kicked it off. Yes, he definitely kicked it off. That was good. They brought up The Rock early on. I think that was great. Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, facing off early, but John Cena announcing he's going to be in the Royal Rumble in Indiana. He set it up really well. He was like, I'm never going to win the 17th championship. Don't even think about it. That would be impossible. And then he led into unless I entered the Royal Rumble, pretty much like that. And it was like, whoa. So
Is he winning the Rumble?
I don't know if he'll win it, but it would be a moment. It would be a moment. And I think that this is, for those of you that are not familiar, this is John Cena's retirement tour. He announced that 2025 is his last year in wrestling. He's not going to wrestle at any point after this. He's agreed to 36 dates on the year. And I think this is going to be he's going to be doing this full time for this last year. So who knows what could happen in the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because the Pacers play at Bankers, or I keep doing that, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I keep doing that. I got to get that out of my head. Gainbridge Fieldhouse at 5 p.m. that evening against the Atlanta Hawks, which means the game will be over close to 7:30. I'm not usually sure what time pay-per-views start, but I would say they usually around 7:30 is when they start.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a 7:38, right in that time. So Tyrese, who knows? He might
Yes.
skip the shower that night. He might be
Yeah.
out of there.
It'll just be a quick shower. He might skip media that night. I would just,
Yeah.
even if he has a great game, I could see him going to the podium, or maybe just saying hey, can someone go to the podium tonight? I want to go to the Royal Rumble and see John Cena, my favorite wrestler, which he said,
Guy.
that's his guy. So I think it'd be cool for John Cena to win in Indiana with Tyrese in the building. So that would be something cool to keep an eye on. But other than that, I did tune in to kind of see what it was going to be like because I was excited. I think the mic looked cool. The live stream actually did a great job. It didn't get laggy at all for
Yep.
me. So that was some issues you saw with the Paul Tyson fight and even a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit of the NFL games. When I was streaming those in my parents' house, they were not always up to speed and they were kind of lagging a little bit, but no issues there. I thought it was a perfectly crystal clear picture on my phone. And only problem I had, I told you, I said it took 30 some minutes before they got into any wrestling. A little
I
bit too
mean,
many promos.
two matches in an hour and a half. I mean, it was definitely a little bit ridiculous. I know they only plan on having 5 matches,
Is it
but
still going on live right now?
it is still going on. So when we're off this, I'm gonna try and catch the end of that. I don't know if it's CM Punk and Seth Rollins in the main event. I believe it's the main event, but hey, that'll be good. Either way, I think it's great if you're a wrestling fan. They're doing some big stuff. One thing I gotta say is interesting though, the fact that it's on Netflix. I'm less likely to stumble upon wrestling if I'm watching regular TV. So that'll be interesting. But I also realize if I'm on Netflix, I'm probably less likely to switch to something else because it's not as simple as just
Good point.
hitting the guide. So interesting strategy. I'll see how it goes. Maybe I either just totally forget wrestling's even on, or maybe I just forget to change the channel for a long time. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I like what Triple H said. There's no DVR required, so you can always go back and watch it. I was, changing the baby, I was feeding the baby, and all of a sudden I was like, oh shoot, it's started at 8. I did want to see what happened, so I logged in at 8:35, and I was able to rewind it and start from the beginning and catch up that way. So I do
That's
think
cool.
that's a very nice feature as well. You can obviously do that if you have it DVR, but you don't have to think about it, right?
Yeah,
I know with streaming you have to be on that channel before you can rewind back and things like that.
exactly.
If you're just doing direct TV stream or something like that, or Hulu, whatever. So, there are definitely some perks, but I think the big thing is just being able to reach internationally because anybody can have Netflix anywhere in the world. But in the US is the only place that they're going to be airing commercials, I guess, on Netflix. So
Yeah, I saw
it
that.
is interesting to me, but
Time
that's
beat.
really cool. So your numbers could be through the roof in terms of viewership
Definitely.
compared to just that US TV market.
Yeah, no, it's going to be huge for WWE. So, hey, cool stuff. Exciting times. Pacer basketball is absolutely back. We got some good momentum. I'm telling you, man. I just don't want it to end. The air is just a little bit more crisp. The pep is just a little bit more real. I want to keep this going. Keep this week. Keep this stretch alive. Chicago, you're going down. All right. This is not the same Chicago Bulls we've struggled with in the past. I think the Pacers are going to be able to handle business, and I feel good about it. I think this team can stretch this winning streak to at least 4 games.
No, they really could. I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. So, good for the Pacers. Good to get back to another victory, and good to beat a bad team on the road.
Yeah.
And Facci, you should have went tonight. I told you tonight was the night to break the curse. But
Yeah, there was moments throughout the day where it just felt like more and more players were being ruled out, and I was like, do I just do it? Like, do I just go by myself just to like get this get this off my back? But you know what? It goes on. I'll find the right game, and I'm confident that this is the season. It ends.
all right, Facci. I don't know if you saw this or not, but our good friend Young Simba at the 2K Messiah, he did share a picture of Tyrese whispering into Cam
I
Johnson's ear
did
at the
see
end of the
that.
game. They are friends. I think that is a good point to bring up. They are
Yeah.
friends from playing with Team USA 2 years ago.
No, that's true. And look, I think after all the whole, Oladipo whispering in ears type of thing, everyone always loves a good pick of that to say, oh, hey, they're going to get this guy, especially someone who's, being rumored that he could be going to the Pacers. So I think that only sparks those rumors.
All right, Facci, we have gone about 40 minutes here, so everybody hope you guys enjoyed our conversation. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow with a podcast conversation that is very fun, talking about Jimmy Butler, what teams could be interested, what teams in the East could make sense, what those trade packages could look like, if those trade packages would work. Should the Pacers make a trade for Jimmy Butler, what would that trade package look like? And if he were to be traded out west, what teams make the most sense, and how would that impact the East in terms of what players could come back onto the Miami Heat? I think this is a very fun conversation, so hopefully you guys tune into that. But with that being said, Facci, we appreciate everybody that is subscribed on the YouTube channel. But if you are watching it on YouTube, you've made it this far and you have not subscribed, please do us a favor, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star rating and review over on our podcast platform. So if you're glad the Pacers are at 3 games and you're claiming a 4th victory here on the winning streak, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.